So I want to show you something about how you can monitor your applications. Is any one of you a developer or something? 1, 2, 3. Oh, cool. Hello, welcome. So, yeah, thanks to our sponsors, of course. I mean, that's mandatory because they make it possible that we all are here. And my session is about discounting. Usually, if you have an application running in your organization, or you create your own application, you don't not really much about the usage of your application. So I've taken this picture here from Google because this is usually you develop a solution, then you roll it out. There's some kind of deployment, then your users are using it, and then if it isn't a website, maybe you have Google Analytics, but you don't know anything about how is the app performing, are there any errors occurring or something like this. And this session is about what you can do to improve this situation. And the same thing goes for errors which happen in your app. Like, for example, if you have a web application, which pages have not been found, or how is the performance of specific pages, and so on. So there's a solution for that, or I would say there are many solutions for that. And this is the target of this session. It's about application insights. Has everybody of you an Azure subscription? Yes? Not all, but okay. So Azure Application or Application Insights is a part of Azure, and you can use it for free up to a specific limit. I will inform you about that a little bit later. And yeah, this is me. So I'm from Vienna, as I said at the beginning, and I'm a blogger. I'm active on my blog at Work@T. I'm a Microsoft MVP. And this is my short agenda. You can see I have this very nice animated stuff. I have a lot of demos. I want to show you how it works with various scenarios and how you can use it. Cool. So with that, why is it important to use Application Insights? What kind of questions does it answer? And you can see here some of the typical questions. It allows you to getting events. Is my application up or down? It allows you to give you performance of your application. So you can also all of these questions which you typically have in a business environment with services like Application Insights. Cool. And the question now is, okay, what kind of options do I have? What can I use? What kind of services or technologies can I use? And the answer is more or less, in the Microsoft world, we have these three things. First of all, we have the System Center Operations Manager, Application Performance Monitoring, wonderful name, so it's SCOM APM, which is valid for on-premises solution. If you want to go to the cloud, you have two different solutions you can use for application monitoring. You have Log Analytics and Operations Management Suite, which is OMS, and we have Application Insights. So these are the technologies you can use. And if I switch to the next slide, there's a short comparison I made here. When should you use what? And in my opinion, the big difference here is that if you want to have your data on premises systems, then go for SCOM APM. If you want to have it in the cloud, if you say I have no problems with my data stored in an Azure storage and where I can access the data later, you would use Application Insights. So there's this decision at the beginning when you start monitoring your applications. And I think, yeah, one word about OMS. I simply have copied a kind of overview if you create a new OMS. In my opinion, it's great, especially for monitoring virtual machines, but not so great for your monitoring applications. So my recommendation is really to use Application Insights, and I want to show you how this works. Has anybody of you already tried it out? No. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay, so you know what I'm talking about, so it's a very easy to use service, and the idea is to integrate it easily in your applications. And I've already opened my Azure portal. And I will increase the size so that you can read it a little bit once it is loaded. So here we go. Yeah. I really like the new Azure logo. It's like the Office logo, a little bit turned. So let's make this a little bit larger here. Okay, if you want to start working with Application Insights, it's a service within Microsoft Azure. So simply go to the AppInsights module. And here you can see I already have a bunch of Application Insights projects created. So the first thing you would go in here and say, I want to add a new service. And now you get a wizard. which asks you, okay, where shall the data be stored? What's the name of that service? So let's call it SBS Lisbon. I'm having a lot of Azure subscriptions, so I'm used to use my initials, TP, Toni, Pohl, at the beginning just to find out which are mine services. Of course, there are other ways to do that with resource groups and tags and so on, but that's very, very easy to find. Okay, then you have this thing here, which says application type. And here you can see what kind of application you can monitor. And usually, in most of the cases, you would say I want to have an ASP.NET if it's a website with ASP.NET, or general, or depending on the platform you're using on the programming language, you can also pick other types. We will come to that a little bit later, what kind of languages are supported with Application Insights. So currently, I want to create a new Application Insights for a website. Then I simply pick the subscription. You can see I have some in here, so I take that subscription as 2. And as every object in the resource manager, I have to assign this application insights to my resource group. I already have created one, so it's simply a logical container. It's called TP AppInsights Demo without typo. And this resource group already stored in West Europe, so I can pick the location of the data center where all the data is reported to. So in that case, I simply say, I want to have it in that resource group, create that application insights, that project for me. This project is provisioned relatively fast, so it takes usually some seconds or maybe up to a minute or so, and will be created instantly. So if I refresh that and filter for TP here, it should be up here, and it's not already here. Oh, it's still running. Usually it takes some seconds. What happens in the background, it's just a logical container, and it's bound to a storage system where the data is stored, which gets reported. So now it's done. So let's go to that resource. Okay, here we go. And here you can see a bunch of properties, what I can do with this Application Insights project. And what I see here is already what happened in my application. Of course, I just created a new, it's not already bound to a website or to any other project, so I have to do that manually. How can I do it? Very easily. Here you can see there's an overview timeline, and you can see I can monitor server response time, page view load, server requests, and so on. And now it depends what kind of project I do have. I want to attach this application insights to a website. So what can I monitor? What can a website do? What kind of data can it send to my application? Well, in my case, it would be interesting to get the page view load time and everything connected with that. But of course, if it's running on a server resource, I might be interested in how is the server doing. What about the memory, the CPU, and so on. It really depends on what kind of data I get. So in my case, I say I'm interested in the client-side metrics. So I say, click on that, and now I get a guidance. Okay, how can I integrate it into my existing application? And in that case, it works in the same way as Google Analytics. So you get a bunch of JavaScript code, you insert that into your own application. So let's do that. So copy or do it with that. Sorry, use my notepad. Simply. I think it works better without line breaks if I do it this way. Okay, so here's the JavaScript. And the interesting part here is this one. That's the GUI of my application. That's my key. That's more or less the same as the Google Analytics key. So this is what I need to add. And for that reason, let's duplicate this wonderful Portal Azure website. I have a website to show you how to integrate it into your web application. I simply need to copy and paste the JavaScript code, of course, just to give you an impression how it reacts. So let's go to my websites, which are somewhere here, App Services. And here I have another, guess the wonderful name, TP application. TP Umbraco. So I've created an Umbraco web in here, which is more or less out of the box, just like I started it something a year ago or so. So there's not really much content, but at least it's a CMS system. So that's the website we have in here, and I duplicate also that folder here and go to the Backend System, Umbraco, So I think I should switch to the correct, correct keyboard. Sorry, again, duplicated. Braco. And I think I've used that login here. So this is the backend system of that website with some nodes in here. There's a home button, and then we have this learn and so on buttons, which are these here. And what I want to do is I want to add that code to my master page, and in that CMS system there's this master template, and here you can see what's happening in here. So I simply take that code and add it here. And there's one thing I want to point out, because you see it's already in here another application insights. So this is already reporting data to another application insights project. So yes, you can mix it. And we had the same scenario. For example, we are hosting blogs for Microsoft, and they wanted to have their own reporting with application insights, and we wanted to have that data as well. Since we don't have access to their application insights, we simply added our own application insights. So there's nothing bad happening in here, just reporting to two storage systems. So it's possible. Maybe it doesn't make sense in all scenarios, but it's technically it's possible. So I could add that code here. And the only difference you see here is the instrumentation key. The first one I used, and this is the new one I just pasted in. So let's save that. And if I now go to my website and open some pages here, like the basics page, or I surf around here, so it's the same system as we have with Google Analytics, but we get a little bit different data for that. So let's go back to our monitoring and refresh that. And let's see, usually it takes something like 1 to 2 minutes to show that the data shows up here. So let's look back maybe in 1 or 2 minutes, and we would see that the page loading view here shows data. So let's go back to my other existing resource to show you some data here. So let's go to Application Insights, TP, and I've added that application to my TP, my App Demo Web, that's the name of that. And the overview here shows me already some data, which is that one here. And I can change the time range, let's say just for the last 48 hours. Show me some data. And there's not really a lot of traffic happening here on that page. It's a demo page. But you can see if I click on the page view time, in that case it's only this row here which sends data, the analytics for that. So it shows me, okay, how many pages, what was the loading time, and you can see here 2.5 seconds for specific pages. So I can go deeper into that data and want to see what pages are the slow pages in my web page. So you can see, okay, I already have an automatic classification which says, okay, I analyzed the data that's coming from that website, and you can see, okay, there are some requests that happen, which took a long time, like something like 4.5 seconds. So now I can click under that configuration, and we'll see, okay, the pages that have been slow on what date was, for example, this Learn Basics page, and then we had the root site with the loading time of 5 seconds, and so on. So it's really, bless you. So it's really helpful to get this kind of data. Would it also work if I go in here, for example, and say, now let's open some web page that's not existing? Yes, also that data, of course, is reported. And that's the strength of Application Insights. It doesn't only monitor page metrics, it also supports errors you can report to that system. And then you get one interface, I will show you that with the analytics a little bit later, where you can start analyzing all your, let's say, errors, for example, not only loading times and so on. Okay, so I want to show you another thing. How is it if you create a new application? So I've opened Visual Studio here. I want to show you the process. Let's close the solution and create a new one, new project. And let's also increase that a little bit. So here we go. It's the right one, yeah. Create a new, in that case, website. Demo, that's my web SPS Lisbon. Let's say it's an MVC application. Okay. Now the template is, this project is generated out of the website of the MVC template, And how can I integrate application insights in here? Well, it's very easy. Once the project is created, right-click here on that, and then you see configure application insights. So you can start right from the scratch. And the same experience goes if you create the application in the Azure portal as well. So if you create a new ASP.NET application in ASP, it also asks you to want to integrate application insights, yes or no. So what happens in here? You see there's a wizard which says, okay, let's increase it a little bit. It says, oh well, the template you've just used is not up to date. We recommend to update it to the latest SDK. So let's do that, which usually takes some seconds. And what's happening in here with the references, that you see that there are now some references added to application insights, which are now part of the project. And once this is done, I can start using it and adding all these features I want to use. It asks me, okay, in which subscription, in which application insights, in which resource group you want to have it. And it says, okay, web SPS Lisbon. I don't want to have the data stored in EastUS. I want to have it somewhere here in my other resource group. So let's go down up here. TP AppInsights Demo. That's the name of the website, Web SPS Lisbon, and I want to send the data to West Europe. Okay, once I've configured that in the wizard, you can see how is it with the costs. And you can see the basic monthly price for doing this is there's 1 gigabyte included per month, which is for free. So if your application doesn't have a lot of traffic, in most cases that's sufficient. If you say, okay, I have a heavily used application, this of course costs money, but it's not much. I will come to that a little bit later. But this is how the pricing model here works. And now I can start registering this application in that website. So this usually takes some seconds. And once this is done, this application is configured to use application insights. And what's happening when this is done is that you get a new config file in here, which is already existing here. It's the application insights config, where I can configure, okay, I also want to report server resources like memory usage, CPU, and all of that stuff. Maybe server errors, so that we don't only get data for the application, for the web application itself, but that we get data for, let's go back to our demo web here, for that row here, for the server requests, which are currently empty, because I just have inserted the JavaScript. So this is the idea of what you can do with application insights to also monitor server-side events, what happens in there. Any questions so far? Yes?
So, it can replace the Google Analytics or complements the Google Analytics?
I would say it complements the Google Analytics because, well, we will see it with the analytics. You also get the data like, for example, how many users have used it, which countries are they from, and so on. You also get that data here. But I would say, I personally would say, Google Analytics is more or less the standard. So especially for comparing websites or so, I would use Google Analytics and application insights maybe additionally. Okay. Especially for errors, that's not troubleshooting exactly. So it's an add-on, I would say. I think for websites I wouldn't remove Google Analytics, but of course it depends on the scenario what kind of data you want to have. But you're very flexible. You can use all the data that's reported to the Azure storage, so you can work with that data in your own systems as well. But it's very powerful. I will show you in a minute or so. Okay, so now this application has been created, or it's still running. Anyway, let's do that. Just want to go back to the slides, want to show you something. So with application insights, with this wonderful slide here, you can watch various resources. You cannot even watch websites. You can also watch cron jobs, for example, Windows Forms applications. So all kinds of applications can report their data to the application insight storage, and of course you can use it for your own events as well. And I want to tell you a story about that. I'm working with many developers, and they said, oh well, the customer, we have some kind of invoicing system, and I said, if something goes wrong, we decided to send an email. And I looked at him like, are you crazy? You want to send for every event that's failing an email to the customer? That's maybe not a good idea. Usually you're interested, okay, if the service fails for 5 minutes, or if I have retried it for 10 times or something, please use Application Insights for that. And you can add events for such cases in Application Insights. So you can add alerting and monitoring reporting as well. And that's what this slide shows. We also have a very cool feature. It's called continuous delivery. Why is this important? It does mean Application Insights stores the values for 30 days. And then it removes the data. It just keeps the summary. So if you say, okay, in my business case, I'm not happy with just having the data for the last 30 days. I want to have it for a longer time frame, like for the last year or so. For that reason, you have to use continuous delivery, send the data to an Azure storage, and then you can access that storage. That's your own storage, and you can decide what do you want to do with that data. So that's that feature.
Can we also just make the monitoring of that site using another renderer? For instance, I have some sites that we need to make sure that the render on a mobile phone, on the web, or a web browser. The site will be different for the mobile or for the web browser. Can I have a bot that goes to the site and just sees the user experience instead of getting the data from the...
Yeah, of course. So there is also an API for using Application Insights, and you can use it for your own, let's say, reporting as well. So we have a similar scenario where this also is important. For example, we have a multi-tenant application, and we said, okay, of course we can create an Application Insights project for each of our customers. But then we need to look into each of these, let's say 20 or 30 or 100 application insights, which doesn't make sense. We need to have it summarized. See, okay, how many users have clicked that button or have opened that page. So what we did, we simply took a very easy approach. We added the name of the customer to the title of that, in that case, of the web page. And I will show you that later. It's maybe not the best way, but it is a way to see, okay, how many users have clicked on that button. And then I can see, okay, which have been the pages and who have been the customers. Of course, there are other ways to do it as well, but this is a very simple approach. And the same goes, in my opinion, for mobile application and web application or different devices, device types, to say, okay, I'm interested how many users have clicked that button and how many users have not, how many users have clicked that button.
It was the more traditional way of monitoring. For instance, I need to prove that my web server was up and running and the application was available for the world. Yeah. But it cannot be just by the web page that was loaded on the mobile device, because if nobody clicks, I don't know. So I need to prove that it was available.
It was available.
Yeah. So is there a way for me to just create a bot that please open the web page and get the result?
Oh, okay, sorry, I did misunderstand you. No, in that case, but there's another solution for that. As far as I know, that's Xamarin Test Cloud. I think they're able to do something like, okay, I open the web page and test it in various devices. So, but that's not not something that Application Insight does. It simply does monitor what's happening, or monitor resources and sending out event notifications or so, but it doesn't do like active testing or so. Good. So we already have seen how it works. So first, the client sends data, so collects data, sends it to the cloud, and in that case, that data here is anonymous. So there's no username or something inside, except you do it in your own application. I will show you that a little bit later. So the data is in the cloud, and what you see in here, the data is processed with machine learning. So Microsoft, the cloud service, takes that data and summarizes it. It sees, okay, what kind of errors happen, can I summarize it? We can also configure that in Application Insights. Let's have a look at that a little bit later. And then we have various tools to work with that data. There's a very powerful analytics in here, and we'll come to that. And this is more the technical view for those of you who are interested. What kind of analytics do I have? Let's start from that side. We can have also Power BI for accessing that data. And we have a REST API, so we can use the data in our own applications as well. And the data is collected from, let's say, websites or client apps, or from web services like a cron job or so. And I have a scenario I will show you. You can also see dependency calls. For example, you have a mobile application that asks a database for data. You also can get that information, how long did it take to get that data, and so on automatically. So it's a lot of features in that application insights, and we already have seen that, what we've done in here.
If we have an offline application, there is any solution?
Currently not. No. If you have an offline, if you're offline with your application, the data is collected in a kind of local storage. But if you don't have a connectivity, it cannot send the data to the cloud service. Yeah. That's, of course, that's one of the limitations we have with application insights. There's no automatic offline scenario or something like this.
Okay.
Just one point.
That we can push that information later.
Yeah, you could do it yourself. Yeah.
So we have an internet site that only is available for internet users, and I can push all that data. They wait for me to push the data so that I can later on push it to Azure.
You could do it, yeah, but you need to do it yourself. It's no built-in mechanism or something like this. Yeah. Just want to point out one thing. If you have an existing project and want to upgrade it, there's this wonderful thing like here, this live metric stream. In that case, which says, okay, attention, we have something new. You should upgrade your application because it's using an old SDK. And that's usually going out of the box very easily. And because also the Azure portal says the same thing. So you can upgrade the NuGet packages, which are these ones, micro application insights. And currently we are here at version 2.4, I think. So simply do it with NuGet, update your solution, and then it sends the data to with the latest repository. And just the important thing, we have seen this application insights config very shortly here in the Project Explorer. Just remember to save your key so that nothing gets wrong, so that your application is the same application that's sending data, of course. Okay, so here what is supported, just want to open that link here, which takes a moment, just to show you what kind of platforms we have. That takes a moment. We've covered with application insights. And you can see officially supported and community supported solutions. So there are SDKs for the various programming languages and also for various frameworks. So you can even send data to application insights from Docker, Glimpse, and so on. And it also is supported with various existing logging frameworks. So of course, if you say, I'm logging to Log4net, for example, you can use application insights for that data sent to application insights, and I will show you how it works. So let's go back to that. I think it's one of the next slides. Yeah. So we just have created this Lisbon thing, and we look into the application config, which is here. And here you can see how you can configure what kind of data is sent to application insights. And what I need to do in here, I need to send a key, to add a key, which is here, this instrumentation key, which identifies my application. So if I run this application here in Firefox, for example, there's no authentication or something. It's simply what this application does. It's showing a website with some pages. There's an integration in Visual Studio as well, so you don't need to go to the Azure portal to see what's happening in that application. So now the application is starting. So here we go. And what happened in here, you can see it here on the right side, you have this menu, Application Insights. And here I can simply go search telemetry. And what I get is integration into Visual Studio. You can see, okay, what happened in that application. And I also increase it here on the left side. You can see it started, and here's some events that happened. So for example, the localhost event time, when happened what. So I can filter for these things. And if I now go back to my application, so let's maybe put it here on the right side, and I click around, so do something like this and refresh, and maybe produce an error, like here, and I say go for it, you will see that these things I just did are reported in here to application insights. So that's the idea. So for developers, it's very convenient to use Visual Studio and the application insights configuration you have in here. So that's a very nice thing. Cool. So let's see what else do we have. Azure Functions. Yep, please.
This is not sending information to Azure?
It sends information, yeah.
And it receives from that? Because it was very fast.
Yeah, it's very fast in that way. It's sending but it's stored. Well, let's put it this way. It collects information, stores it in your local cache, and then sends the data to application insights.
So you are seeing the local cache information there in Visual Studio?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, is anybody of you using application Azure Functions already? Serverless?
Only in box. In some box.
Cool. So Azure Functions is very, very cool technology. I really love it, and I want to show you that. It's also possible to use application insights with Azure Functions. So let's go here. Let's go to that. Yada yada, loading. So in your function apps, you can add it to application insights as well. So an Azure function is a small code snippet, like here for example. We've created some functions in this wonderful container Ignite demo. Let's open that. I think there's something like 4 functions in here. And in here, that's like a small project. And the benefit of Azure Functions, in my opinion, is they're serverless. They simply run within the Azure framework. And you can simply more or less copy your code in here. And you can also use, for example, PowerShell. And this is what we did, for example, for provisioning a new Office 365 group. Well, if it loads, let's see. And while this loads, let's take a look into that. So there's a very nice article informing about how you can integrate application insights into functions, which is more or less simple. You create a new Azure application insights project, what we did at the beginning, and then you get this application key. And let me go in here just to show that the application key, that's my Prague website, so go to AppInsights, filter for my cool TP. And there's someone, the SPS Lisbon thing, here it is. And in here you see the properties. Here's this instrumentation key, that case 24, D2, and so on. So that's the key for my application. And if I look into that other window here, I can simply create that application and then add that key here to as an app setting key in my function. So more or less that's it, but then simply follow the steps in here. So it's also easy to integrate application insights to your function. Now it opens, just want to show you, for example, here's a Azure function, which is simply PowerShell, which provisions an Office 365 group. So it doesn't care what kind of technology we are using here. It says, okay, that's a kind of a web job, and we simply send data to that application insight, so that we also can more, in that case, it's more or less like a cron job. So if there's some job that's running automatically in the background, or gets triggered by a flow or whatever. Cool. So just wanted to point out that as well. And I want to also inform you, if you have your own web server running, if you say, okay, Azure, I have my own web servers in my company, with IaaS, you can also integrate application insights there as well. And this is the process how to do it. You install the web platform installer, and once you've installed that, you have this wonderful, you simply select application insights monitor status, you install it, and then you can pick which website shall report data. And of course, in that case, you don't just get the web page data, you get the server data, like CPU, memory, and all that stuff. Okay, so it's also easy to do it, and here's an example. I did it on my web server just to show you what kind of data you get, for example, exceptions that are heading on the website, or memory and that stuff. So you get a lot of interesting data here, which is installed. Okay.
Which frequency this information is sent to?
Every time an event happens, it reports data to Application Insights. Application Insights takes that data, tries to summarize it, and sees, okay, there are 5 lines which say the same, so I make 1 line out of it.
So if the website is not used, it will report nothing.
Pardon?
If the website is not used, it will report nothing.
It will report nothing, yeah. But of course, if you have the server component, then something will report the server. Yeah.
The application is unloaded or something like that.
There's some cool settings you can do. Let's go back to our, I think here to our SPS Lisbon. What you can do in here, so we've seen that the dependencies which are happening, in that case that's only the dependency we added to the website. By the way, let's see if the website already reported something. There should be at least some page loading data in here, just to prove that something's happened. Not really. Okay. Maybe it takes a little bit longer. But anyway, let's go to the application map. In that case, I've added that code, that JavaScript code, to my Umbraco website. And Umbraco is reliant on a SQL Server database. And you can see that it checks, okay, there are some things happening in that application. In that case, there's availability and Lisbon and so on. So you can click on that, okay, give me some more information about the client. Then I see, okay, how did I integrate that client, in that case with the JavaScript, for example. There's some more things you can add here, like, for example, the Metrics Explorer, which also tries to summarize all the data that's collected in Application Insights. And you can always click on these events if it sends data and go deeper into that data as well. And the interesting part here is like something like the classification for availability, how is my website working. And I actually want to go to the usage. Yeah, here maybe let's go to another sample where we have some data. So that's the demo web here. So let's go here to, I hope there's some data in that in here. It's not happening much, but let's see. Yeah, here's at least some data of my Umbraco website. You can see the typical load time and so on. And if you go to the users, we should also get some data about that. It's a little bit similar like Google Analytics, because in that case it's a web application. So I've opened that in 2 sessions, obviously, with 2 users, and you can play around with that. I want to get that data in that kind of rendering engine, etc. The interesting part here is I can send alerts. So I can use Application Insights as a monitoring tool to say, if the application isn't up and running, I want to get an email or something like this, or I want to get a report. You can also add a webhook, so you can see I already have added some, and this is how it works. I would say I want to have a metric alert, for example, and now in the wizard you configure what kind of data, what kind of notification you want to have, like for example, not responding or something like this. Responding. Do the same description. Then you pick what kind of data are you interested in, what this thing delivers, which is somewhere below, alert on metrics. Metric, yeah, here we go. And here you can see some classifications, some categories. I could say, okay, the receiving response time or the client processing time. If I have, for example, integrating a JavaScript which is heavily running on the client side or something like this, or if the CPU rate is too high, too low, etc., then you can simply define your condition to say if this.
Can we have a template of this? Imagine you have 100 sites and you want to have the same rules for those sites.
No, currently you could do it with the API because you also can define the rules there. So there, I think you can send a JSON template to that. So it's not here in the surface in the Azure portal, but you have to do it manually for each application insights. But I think you can do it with API. And here's the interesting part to say, okay, I want to have a notification to my email address or something like this. And this is the thing that really makes sense. You can say, I don't want to have an email each time that happens, just if it happens in the last 15 minutes or something like this. So it really makes sense to use it for these notifications. Cool. So you can simply now save that rule, and you can see that this alert now is being created, and you can configure it as you need it for the resources you want to have here. There's also this continuous export of application insights here, where you can see I can add my own storage to get all the data so that they're not lost if they are deleted automatically after 30 days. So I would simply add that storage to that application insights. And here's the API access. The good thing, what I've forgotten here, the alerts, I think, just want to show you one thing. You can add your own webhook as well. So if you have an own system where I want to get the information that something was going wrong because the CPU load was more than 80% or so, I also can add my own webhook, which was, I think, here on the bottom also.
It was near the email.
Yeah. Takes a moment to load. So that's simply, okay, I cannot change it here, but I simply click that add metric alert here, or activity log. It's simply a categorization here. Yada, yada, yada. So this address here, this webhook, where you say, okay, I want to get that information, and you get a JSON payload saying what's happening in here. If you want to report that data to a storage, I just want to show you how this looks like. So I've opened my Azure Storage Explorer, went into one of these storages. There's a blob container data, and go in here. Just how it's stored. A little bit slow. So here you see how it's stored. It's per date as one folder. If we look into one folder, you see there are various categories.
What's the time zone that you use to change it per day?
The time zone used is the time zone you have configured. Let's have a look into that. So, for example, into that blob storage.
For instance, you have.
I think everything in Azure here is GMT. Yeah. So let's open that.
No, I was asking. Imagine it's a time. You have a site that is being accessed by Malaysian and being accessed by United States. They have different days.
Yeah.
And it's the same time. For you, for the web server, it's the same. It's today, but for the guy in the United States, it's still the previous day.
That's true, and that's why you have it. I think we saw it here, the GMT. So everything's reported as GMT here. So you have to calculate it on your own if you want to continue working with that data. And this is how it looks like. So you get a JSON payload saying, okay, in that case, this happened. And you have to really use the data to send it to your own SQL database or whatever you want to do with that. So that's a little bit, let's say, cryptic, but it's possible to save all that data here. Okay, so what you...
If you wanted to, if you wanted to analyze that information 3 months, you want to see the whole year, is there any possibility to use any of the application inside web browser, or we need to install something that can export it with that data?
If you want to access the old data, you just have to use your own storage
browser.
and analytics doing for that as well. But you can import data. So I want to show you that.
Okay.
So let's go to another application insights where we have a little bit more data. And we have a product, and for that product, just want to show you the big picture. It's running completely on Azure, and we have a website. That's the name of that website. It's delegate365.com. So I like that stuff. So we have a website. We have an application that's a web portal with a SQL database behind that, and we have a cloud service. And so we have 3 different components generating data. And we're collecting the data here with application insights. So let's go back to that. Search that is not for P, but for the product name.
It's not yours.
Exactly. So this is the website. As you can see here, it's an Abstract website. So let's have a look at that. And it's in different subscriptions and different plans and so on. It's historically, so we would sometimes we'll consolidate it into one subscription and one resource group. So this is what the website is reporting. It's not that bad. What about you? So, yeah, you see the users who are accessing this, so I can, the page load time, we've already seen that. There's application insight also reporting data from the server side because it's an ASP.NET website, and so on. An interesting part here is the analytics. And this is a very cool feature you can use for getting data out of your application insights. It's not just clicking around in the Azure portal. You can use this wonderful analytics page to access that data and to visualize it. This usually takes some seconds to load, and you can see the URL analytics applicationinsights.io. Microsoft is trying to use this IO domain now for many things. And below that, I'll make it a little bit smaller. You see pre-configured queries. So like, for example, users. Show me the users who have accessed this website. And what I get out here, I have a new tab if I click that run button, which now generates me, in an own syntax, generates me a request and says, okay, you're interested in the users of that website. How does it look like? And you can see render as a pie chart. I also could get access to that data as a table form. Simply change that or change the query. It's a little bit similar like SQL. So let's switch back to my chart. And here you can see a little bit. Oops. Come on. I actually wanted to increase the size a little bit. Okay, what's happening in here? So how many users have accessed that web page? It's United States, Ireland, and so on. The interesting part, why is it United States or Ireland? Well, we are hosting that website in North Europe, in Dublin, so many requests are coming from Ireland, especially the ones who are ending at that endpoint. But we also do have some requests from here. And you can see in the statement here, here, they go, show me the last 24 hours. I could also go to the maximum, show me the result for the last 30 days or so. Maybe then we should see that it, of course, takes more time. You can see it running up here. Now it's really getting all the data. If you think about the amount of data that's being collected, you will see, okay, it's now a little bit, not really different, but anyway. But at least you got access from India and Ukraine and so on. So it answers you similar questions like, where are my users from? And if I go back to the home page, I can also add more of these samples, like performance of errors. Let's see if there are some errors happening in here. You get the data from application insights, in that case for the last 24 hours. Okay, it doesn't record any errors. But I think the last thing here is performance might be interesting. And you can play around with that. There's an own page informing about the query language you can use here in these analytics. And you can also, and that's the thing I want to point out, you can add more data sources to that. So if you save the data in your own storage, you can add that data here as well and use the data for visualization. Okay, and it has nice features here like percentiles. Show me the duration, and I'm interested in how many features or how many requests are happening with 50% of the load balance and so on. So this is a very cool tool, and I really recommend to play around with that if you already have the data stored in your application insights. What I can show you the other parts of my delegate solution, which was this tab here. So let's go back to my application insights. I said we also do have a portal, which is this one. That's also a website reporting data. Let's go to the analytics here. Come on. you cannot switch in here in the analytics, so you really have to go back to the Azure portal and say I want to have the analytics for that, except you know the page name, so simply do that. That's the solution itself. So that's really another web portal. It has nothing to do with the website. And in here, this is the multi-tenant solution. And we will see the same thing for that web page. It's not New York. So let's do the same here with users. Let's see if this looks a little bit differently. In that case, it should be more data, because there are many users using this. Yeah, you can see, oh, Dragon's already gone. I just wanted to show you that even people from Bosnia and Herzegovina are using the solution. So it's simply the same thing with different data. And the last thing.
And 90% doesn't know where?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, obviously.
The blue one is unknown, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Somewhere, don't know.
On the moon.
That's just the last 24 hours.
From Mars.
From Mars. Who knows? Yeah, what the client reports. That's what the web browser says, or I don't know how it is, for example, with Core or something. Yeah. You really have to dig into that if you're interested. The last thing, what I want to show you is we also have this cloud application. That's in that case a job waiting for tasks. In that case, calling remote exchange PowerShells, because it's necessary for some kind of operations. And in that case, Application Insight shows me what kind of data, what kind of requests you get for specific functions, which is also interesting, and how long do they run. So let's go down here. That's my Exchange facade. And you can see here we don't have any page data, because it's a cloud service, but we have server response time. Let's dive into that. And if you look at the performance of our Exchange API, we will see that sooner or later we get some data in here, and if I scroll down, it should report some more data, like here. You can see, okay, there are some operations exchange, remove and add AD group members or so, which is a function that's used, but it takes a lot of time to execute, and so on. So Application Insights really helps you to find out such bottlenecks and to help you to find how is my application performing. And depending on the application type, you get data like page view time, load times, or even operations that are running as a cron job or HTTP triggered or whatever. So that's the idea, and you can use the analyzing here as well for getting more insights about your data, and you can use the alerting as well. And I have one last demo I want to show you here. You can also integrate Application Insights into your own applications, like for example, Windows application here. I've created a web form with a wonderful window here. Sorry, actually what's the open? Yeah, here it's opening the designer. It's a window with two buttons in here, which cannot be loaded right now. But we will see if we start it. Yeah, here we go. Two wonderful buttons. And if I go back to the code here, let's increase that a little bit. The only thing you need to do, you need to add the NuGet package, in that case for Application Insights, which are these, here it is, that NuGet package and some dependencies. I've integrated it in here, and this is how you can start using it for your own code. You start in your telemetry client, you have to add your key, which is happening here. Of course, that should be in a config file just for demo purposes. Then you can see when the main window starts, I want to get the environment username. In that case, it's a Windows application, so I have access to that data. I create a new session with a new GUID. I also send the operating system and the date time now. And I create a new event if the user clicks that button. And this is how you send that data to Application Insights. Simply track the event and flush, make sure that the data is transported. And the same happens if an error happens here. So let's start this application. in the meantime, it's a little bit slow here. Let's go to our application insights back and see if we see that data. In that case, let's go back to our TP, wonderful name. And here we have our My App Demo. That's the key. And I have only 5 minutes, so I will fast a little bit. So while this is loading, let's start that. Actually, here it goes, a little bit slow here. So do something. So if I click that button for some times and I do a crash, so I want to show error reporting, and I also edit that, so it should show up, okay, there's an error happening, and you also can collect that error here with the track exception and say, okay, if an unhandled error happens, I want to report that data to my application insights. So that's the idea of application insights, and that's, in my opinion, the big benefit application insight offers, to also be responsible for your errors. So I would really recommend to use application insights instead of your own logging, like the example I said before with my developer who said, I will send out an email to the customer, something's failing or so. Better use application insights and add an alert for that to get the information, okay, something's going wrong in my application.
If the latency is big, the application will be slower, right?
Yeah. Usually it takes something like 1 to 2 minutes until the event shows up in application insights.
The user experience for the application. Imagine you click the button, you are sending a request post to Azure, right? Mm-hmm. If you are in a country which will be with a high latency, your application will be much slower because it's still waiting for that synchronous information.
Yeah, you only could try to make it in an asynchronous process or so. Yeah. But this is depends on you, how you implement your solution. Sure. But of course, it's some effort, but an HTTP request usually is done very
not
quickly.
a big problem, just thinking out loud.
But that flush method is synchronous or asynchronous?
In that case here,
If you are
if you
putting
look back
in
to
the middle of your
solution,
code, it's synchronous. It's still waiting.
here it's synchronous. Yeah. I think
the
there's
middle
an
of the code,
asynchronous way as well. I just tried it out with that sample, but in real applications it would make sense to use asynchronous methods. Okay, so there's a code sample integrated here as well. We already have seen it with the alert. Yeah, if you get alerts, just want to show you how this looks like here. This is what you get if you get the event notification. It says, okay, there's some website which failed for 15 minutes. You get one consolidated message and not hundreds of them. So that really makes sense. Cool. And also you get these performance warnings as well. For example, the solution here, web app in that case, which says, okay, we have a very high loading time, so maybe you should look into that as well.
It's a browser problem.
Yeah, whatever. So the design goals of application insights, they wanted to have one solution for all of your applications. We have seen these ad hoc queries, and I really would recommend to dive into that as well. There are some samples for that, so let's skip this. We already have seen it. And the last things in here. Yeah, we already have seen the continuous export with the Azure storage system. Just wanted to point out that here. There's an API for that. And the last thing here in my presentation here is the pricing, which we have seen the basics for that. So it's free up to 1 gigabyte per month. And we also do have some things we can use, like you need to opt in for pricing. If you say I want to skip that limit, you can configure that. Sorry. You can use, if you have an MSDN subscription, you can use that as well for your own purposes to find out, to collect some data. Okay, if you skip that limit, if you exceed it, you get a nice email like this one, which says, it was capped, so I simply start collecting data from now on. That's it. So you can decide, you don't have the risk that you have to pay money for a service that's automatically running. Okay, so we have to have some links here in the presentation. That's my call to action. That's my almost last slide. I want you to encourage to try it out. It's a really cool feature in Azure, and it's really helpful to find errors in your application. That's the idea of Application Insight, and that's my key takeaway. try it out, play around with it, try analyzing services. It's a really cool thing to find how your application is performing. So with that, many thanks to all of you, and I hope it was useful, and have a nice rest of nice day here at SharePoint conference. Thank you.